The third round of negotiations just took place in Bonn in Germany a week or so ago in August. And the idea here at this particular meeting was to have a negotiating text presented by the chairs of the Framework Convention on Climate Change negotiations, and to try and reduce the length of that text, which is now at about 200 pages, which is far too long for countries to agree to in Copenhagen, and bring it down to maybe 30 or so pages. They spent a week trying to do this. They were more successful in certain parts than in the other parts. The good news is on adaptation and on RED, the reducing emissions from deforestation and land degradation, they were able to achieve a much shorter consolidated text. The other parts have not been achieved yet, but what they have done is mandated the co-facilitators and the chairs of the sessions to do a version of the consolidated text before the next meeting, which takes place in Bangkok at the end of September, which is a 2-week-long meeting. And hopefully we will have a shorter consolidated text by then, which can be negotiated down, and then there's a further meeting in Barcelona in November for a week before we have the 2-week-long session in December at the COP. So if all goes well, the process of whittling down the text is now progressing reasonably well. But the major impediments to getting a final agreement in the negotiations are really not within the remit of the negotiators themselves, because they require much higher level decisions. Firstly, they will require a decision from the finance ministers of the rich countries or the annexed countries to provide some indication of how much money they're prepared to put into solving the climate change problem. They've put trillions of dollars into solving the banking problem. The amounts needed for climate change are, if not that great, in the similar order of magnitude, maybe $500 billion to $1 trillion over the next many years. And we have to know whether that money will be available or not before the other parts of the puzzle can be negotiated. The money is really the glue that binds everything together. If there's no glue, then nothing gets held together. And we have to know how much money is available early on. The optimistic scenario is that we will know this in September when the G20 heads of state meet in Pittsburgh in America, who have called on their finance ministers to provide some indication of how much money will be available. So hopefully at that meeting in September we will know a bit more about how much money will be available. The next important meeting at the highest political level will be a summit being called by the UN Secretary General of the United Nations in New York just before the General Assembly meeting, which is on the 22nd of September, where he's invited lots of heads of state, and I understand President Obama has accepted. The day before that, the Alliance of Small Island States, the Small Island Developing States, are meeting at the head of state level and will come out with a statement as well. So that's another opportunity for a very high-level intervention from heads of state of some of the countries, particularly the more vulnerable countries, prior to Copenhagen. And then finally in Copenhagen, the Danish government has also invited all heads of state to come, and a number of countries, particularly African and vulnerable LDCs, least developed country heads of state, have indicated that they will be going to Copenhagen, which is a good sign. We still haven't heard from President Obama whether he's going to go to Copenhagen. We're hopeful that he will go, because if he does go, that means that he's more likely to agree to an agreement, because if the heads of state go to a meeting, they can't afford to fail. So hopefully if he does agree to go to that meeting in December in Copenhagen, that will be a good sign. But we'll have to keep our eyes out open for that.